Hello, everybody. Tara here with a Wifey Wake Up podcast. No makeup again today, and it's feeling good, actually. Anyways, take care of your skin, take care of your body. It will show for sure. Today, we're talking about be his safe space. Now, usually, I don't like using catch terms, terms that are just kind of, anyways, but this is a good one, right? Be his safe space. We all know that safe space is a place where someone can feel protected, comfortable, and so it is pretty appropriate. Guys won't admit it, but they're actually just as, if not more, I think they're more emotionally sensitive than women. And it's deceptive, right? Because they're so tough seeming on the outside, right? But think about it. The creatures that have the toughest exoskeleton, they have their skeleton on the outside, is because everything is so soft on the inside. And granted, we humans don't have an exoskeleton and we have soft insides too, but we have other means of protecting ourselves, right? And it's just a very interesting comparison when thinking about men. So, however, the masculine man, of course, will defend himself, but he won't. Now, I'm defining here, right? I'm making a separation, a difference. The masculine man, the quality man, will defend himself. So he's sensitive, but it's also because he knows what is very sensitive. Did I say that? He will protect himself because he's very aware of what's sensitive on the inside. And as the saying goes, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And that's just it. A quality masculine man will not allow himself to be walked over. And so if you're a woman who's not accustomed to dealing with masculine men, I've heard it labeled as toxic masculinity, or he's just, you'll notice he's the type of man who will just leave a relationship. He won't stick around and be treated poorly. He will see the signs for what they are and he will leave. And that's very appropriate and something to be aware of. Ladies, that's what I'm here to do, is to point out those things that I've learned in over 20 years of marriage to the same person. And I would say that we have a successful relationship. Nothing is ever going to go perfect all the time in business, in life, in a relationship, but hopefully you learn from it and that life becomes better because of that. And that's where I say I definitely am at this point. I just said to my husband the other day, thank God we got through so many previous hurdles and didn't call it quits then, because we are really reaping the rewards of those difficult times previously and who we've become individually and together because of it. So that's what I'm trying to help you with. These are things that I would have loved to have had access to years ago, this information. Sure, there was books, the internet was still fledgling. There wasn't a whole lot on or anything on YouTube yet. And these are just things that I would have found very, very helpful. And one of those things is I struggled with, why is my husband so hard sometimes, it seems, to deal with? And that is because he had learned from previous life experience as well that, what you allow will continue. And so he has always been very definitive on what he allows and doesn't allow, not only in our relationship, but in life. And it was hard for quite some time because it would feel like I was I would have allowed relationships, mostly relationship situations, to go further, but he wouldn't. And in the long run, I saw that it was for the better. I felt like I was missing out at the time, but it was ultimately for the better. So that is a positive quality and characteristic. If you're wondering, boy, I'm really attracted to this guy, but he seems so discerning, definitive. He says yes and no. He doesn't put up with my BS. Well, you've got a real man there. And the thing is, these days, is that men have been taught to acquiesce so much to women that they've become men that are not attractive to women. That's the catch-22, is that, we think that we want men that are so open and telling us their feelings all the time and really behaving like women, but it becomes very unattractive to women. And I'm just giving you the heads up to be careful of what is not only a natural nature, but I think mostly has been taught and instilled in women, certainly of my generation. I'm a very early millennial. And the generation just even before that, and certainly since. These are things that you probably don't even notice because they are so ingrained and so instilled. And so I want to give you some of these clues and what's going on. So here's the thing. Okay. Why you want to be his safe space, and I'll tell you in a moment what that entails, what that means, is because you are then in your feminine. He can then be in the masculine, and they go together. And when you are his safe space, he wants to be even more for you. He wants to provide and protect even more. What is already naturally an instinct for him, he wants to do that even more. And I'm going to give you, this is a big nugget here, okay? There's so much talk out there about cheating. Men who, like I said, are quality men, and I put that that definer there, and masculine men will just leave. They'll just leave, okay? So you're dating in particular, and he won't put up with your BS. He is just going to take off. Thanks for being here. Good to see you. And but the man who allows himself to be put down, to be emasculated, he'll stick around. He'll stick around for years. But he has been so beat down and can't say no and can't say yes. He'll stay around, but he'll even secretly cheat, and you won't know it, because he still has that desire, that need and desire to be loved, to have the attention, to have connection. And if it's not constantly, but regularly getting, and over time, getting more and more beat down by his wife, he still has that natural need and desire to seek that elsewhere. And that's the man that you want to be more aware of. And you can play a part in that or not play a part in that. And that's what I'm going to give you next. So when you love someone, you treat them with kindness, with respect, and especially for a real man, respect is essential. Okay? It is absolutely essential. And what does that look like? I'm going to lay it out here because these are things that practically hit me in the head. I had to learn them the hard way to really understand what this meant, because I was brought up in an environment, like I'm sure many of you were, to do the opposite, to badger a man to get what you want, to put him down. And ladies, first of all, if it's just about you, first of all, that's not going to get you what you want. But if you truly love someone, you're not going to do that to them, right? When you love someone, you treat them with love and kindness. And this is what this looks like in this circumstance. So being his safe space, point out his good characteristics, okay? Do that certainly more than if you're at all going to list any faults. Now, I don't recommend listing any faults, and we can get to that in another podcast. Like, how do you communicate to a man if you're dissatisfied with something? But absolutely communicate to him more his positive qualities. Do away with the faults. It's like there's the old story, and I didn't even plan on saying this, but there's an old parable, I think it's a Native American parable of, the young boy is saying to his grandfather, which wolf will grow the biggest? And the grandfather is like, well, the one that you feed more. And it's true in anything in life. The more attention you give to these positive qualities, those are more likely to grow. If you give attention to the negative qualities, those will even sprout seeds elsewhere, like weeds. Okay, next. This goes along with the first one, but don't criticize him. I know it's hard because we learn, especially we women in this North American society, we were basically raised to do exactly that. Point out where men are insufficient, where men are where they're not only insufficient, but like just point out anything bad that we can find or create about men. But when you're in a loving relationship, that doesn't make sense to be criticizing them when you say you love someone and you want to make something together with them, something positive. But I'm going to add an additional point. Do not do that in front of anyone, okay? If there's any reason at all to criticize them, just absolutely don't do that in front of someone else. That is like, I don't even know the phrase to use. It is just adding insult to injury, right? That's the phrase we have in English to say to that. Next, I would say is provide a comfortable environment. Now, I'm going to get into a few details of that. And that could be a number of things. He'll likely communicate that to you, what that means. He'll say it in ways like, it just smells so good in here, or I love your hugs, or he'll communicate in some way. But part of that, a comfortable environment, there's a caveat. It doesn't mean comforting his feelings. That would be treating him like a woman. If he were to come to you to complain about something, or maybe he just says, oh, it's been a long day, I'm so tired. You don't have to try to pry it out of him. A woman wants to talk about it, wants to kind of rehash it and let it out. A man, not so much. If you kind of maybe give him the hug and kiss that he likes, get him the beverage that he likes when he gets home, whatever it may be. And I realize, women, you might be the one who got home from work as well, but you're a team, right? You're in marriage together. So it's not just about what I need and what I want. So it is really give and take. So I want to emphasize, while it's important to provide a comforting environment, it doesn't necessarily mean you're comforting his feelings. That's what you would do for a girlfriend. I've already kind of mentioned this, but greet him when he comes home or when you otherwise reunite. This is something I didn't really realize how important it was until a few instances. And just to emphasize, this could be like a warm hug and a kiss. Something simple, doesn't take much from you. And I didn't realize how important this was. And granted, my husband and I work from home. On the same premises. We see each other multiple times per day. So it's not even like it's been 8, 9, 10 hours since I've seen him. It might have been 4 hours. And he said, it's as simple as, you're sitting there at the dining table, which is, you can see our entrance from there. He's like, it's as simple as you getting up and just coming over and greeting me, saying hello, giving me a kiss and a hug, and then perhaps going back to what you were doing, maybe working at the table. And he said, just that acknowledgement is nice, and I appreciate it. And fortunately, he's a great communicator and, explained that all to me. And then I also realized later how nice that is. And this might seem silly, but boy, we can learn so much from our animals. So a little over a year ago, we got a kitten, and she's my cat, but she's our cat. It's kind of how it goes in our household. And like when I get home, of course, I've noticed, since my husband has said that he'd like to be greeted when he got home, how nice it is to be greeted, because I've noticed then more when he does that for me. But also when my cat hears me coming up the stairs and then greets me at the top of the stairs. I mean, it's just delightful. And so why wouldn't that be the same for your spouse, for a human being? And it's often things like that in life that really help me to understand better. Another thing is, the tendency is when the spouse gets home or you get home, you want to address certain things right away, right? And it could go whether you're getting home or he's getting home. And what I just really encourage is, in any situation, is to make a time to have a specific discussion. And this is a part of creating a safe space, right? If he doesn't feel like you're just all of a sudden something comes out of the blue, or you have to say it because it's on your mind. It's actually respecting his mental and emotional space by saying, you know what, I have something to talk about. Maybe it's about finances, or one of the kids got in trouble at school. Can we at 8 o'clock take about 20 minutes to talk about it? Give it a time limit. The 20 minutes is not like a minimum. give it a limit and give it its own time and space so that he can prepare himself as well. And then what you're, especially if it's a topic that you know is typically difficult for you to talk about, you create a space for it. And it has its own space, it has its own time limit, and I highly recommend sticking to that time limit and having a goal for what is the objective of that meeting. Okay, those are little mini podcast within a podcast, but that can be super helpful. Next is if he says he needs his space. I'm kind of going in order. Can you tell? Like he gets home from work, or you're both joining at home from work, and how do things typically go? What are the typical pet peeves? Okay, typically he wants a greeting, and then he wants to go and do his own thing and decompress, right? And usually we as women are like, I got this to do. I'm doing that. Getting dinner, doing laundry, all these things, but we're actually hardwired more for that. And we can get into that someday about our own makeup, that we need breaks in different ways than guys need breaks. So when it seems like, oh my gosh, I'm doing 5 things at once, and he's just sitting on the couch, maybe playing video games. He needs that time to recharge. Okay. He wants to, I'm assuming he's working full time or more. He's working to provide for the family, doing his part. Guys just need to recharge in a different way. And I know it seems like in those moments that he's not contributing, but you have to give him his time and space. That's just how guys recharge. Okay. And maybe we can get into more of the details at some point. But just take it for what it is at this point. And like I said, a good man wants to provide, a quality man wants to provide. And so this is kind of part of the previous point. When maybe he's playing a video game to recharge. That's just his thing. He's watching a movie, he's watching a game. That's his way of recharging. And when you love someone, it's also about seeking to understand their point of view. So if it comes to a point where there is contention or even struggle in your own mind, first of all, try to understand where he's coming from, and then even ask. If you can't even imagine where this is coming from, like why he's doing that, what he's thinking, ask. Ask in a way that you are curious and you genuinely want to understand, not necessarily in a way where you're trying to prove your point. They are worlds apart. When I changed this in how I interacted with my husband in our marriage, my husband noticed. He's like, there was a point at this point in time, he said, you changed things. And I hadn't even remembered that I deliberately did that, but he noticed and he remembered. And he said, wow, things just totally turned around for him and how he felt. He wanted to respond more what I would perceive as positively towards him. And it was really a night and day difference. So especially a quality man, a quality man wants to be there for you, wants to provide for the family, and but needs his time, needs his space, like I mentioned. And if you're wondering, what is he thinking, maybe even regarding a financial decision or something that's going on in life, ask him and seek to understand rather than trying to prove your point. You'll get way further. And again, this is all about creating a safe space, a happy, healthy environment. Okay, and last but certainly not least, if any of these seem difficult, now I understand as I write these, I think, oof, at this point in life, this one would have been tough for me. At this point in life, this one was tough for me. And so ladies, I understand that some of these may be really difficult to swallow, but I'm telling you with all sincerity and love that I'm putting this out there for the version of me that's out there. So many of us are so similar. We go through similar things in life. And what I would have appreciated hearing years ago, so you don't have to go through the struggle, that you get the hints and the clues without having it, hit your head against the wall, so to speak. So this last one is if these are pretty tough to imagine, take some time and imagine this last one. And this last one, if it's hard to imagine, if you're oh, but he just doesn't do things around the house, or why should I be the one that greets him at the door when I've been working, 8 hours a day also and taking care of the kids and doing that, okay? I understand those things do exist, but you're in a partnership, you are in marriage, and you are working hopefully on the same goal in life. And so even though you might feel like you're pulling more of the weight at times, oftentimes men don't tell us all the things that they're doing in the situation to help pull the weight. And so this exercise can help you really understand this even more. And so imagine your life without him. And I'm not encouraging you to imagine your life without him because you're divorced, okay? Imagine your life without him because he died. I know, harsh, right? Take some time and think about this. Think about what your life would be like if he died and you didn't have any insurance, any pension, anything, and you had to provide for yourself, your family, to take care of everything. What would be all the things that you have to do and take care of? And what would the quality of your life, not only financially, but emotionally, what would your life be like if you didn't have him around? Okay. Maybe, you might think, well, I wouldn't have to deal with his BS in this department or whatever. Well, that's why I say take a while to exercise this thought and think really, really in the whole scheme of things, what would you really miss? Because either way, if you're kind of at your wit's end and you're like, Tara, none of those things matter, you're going to grieve him. You're going to grieve the loss of your marriage either way. If you got a divorce or if he died. And especially considering if he weren't around because he died, and you had no means, you that also had to take care of yourself and your family. Sometimes putting ourselves in our imagination in the extreme situation helps us to see the good things that we have in our life now and really what we have to work with. A lot of times, and I'm saying this because I've been through it, when I've been in a decent situation in life but not unhappy with my situation, it's easy to come up with ideas and all the reasons why I was not happy. But if I flipped the script, if I took it to the extreme in the example, the exercise that I mentioned, it got me to think, okay, wow, I have a lot more blessings in my life than I realize. And spending that time to consider that was well worth it. So in a summary here, you already know that life is tough out there, right? And it's going to be tough anyways. So why not work as a team, work together, help provide him with that safe space. If you think safe space, in quotes, safe space is important, why not provide that for the people who are most important to you, the people that you most love? Okay, let's see. I have a few other things, but I'm wondering if I've already mentioned it. Maybe one other sort of thought about this is that there are sometimes I wonder about this, because when we're not feeling fulfilled in our life, it affects us in so many other areas of life, right? We treat other people differently or not as well because we're not feeling that, right? And so I'll list just two examples. So a couple of years ago, my husband was in the hospital and he had a life-threatening condition. And in that scenario, and as something as we think as simple as getting our tires rotated. You think it's an everyday thing is done how many millions of times probably in this world, maybe hundreds of thousands of times in this world every day. But if those two people, the surgeon or the doctor, and I'm assuming both are men, of course, in this situation, what if they had a really bad night the night before? They had an argument with their spouse. What if they had a really bad morning? Maybe it carried over into the morning and they weren't able to separate in their mind or even emotionally, it carried over. They didn't get good sleep. Of course, we can imagine what might happen in a scenario where a doctor is not totally with it. And I say in particular because the primary doctors my husband had were men. How bad of a mistake could they make just because they're not in that emotional and mental headspace? And you might think, boy, someone who rotates my tires, that's not a big deal. But as my husband says, who is a former racer, your tires are the only thing between you and the road that keep you on the road, safely on the road. So you want to have not only very good tires, but you want to have them, of course, properly maintained. And so you want, I mean, they might seem like very different examples, but think about it. How you are in your household extends beyond you. It's not just about you. It is initially about you and your marriage and your relationship and your family, but how you are extends beyond you. So hopefully that is maybe a little extra motivation to help provide that safe, warm, comfortable space at home. And if you're still rubbing you wrong, listen to yesterday's podcast also about serving your husband. And I know it just, those titles are kind of tough to bear, but really there are some real good nuggets in there. And all it comes down to is love. When you truly love someone, it's not about an act of service. It's not about doing things for them. It is an act of love. It's just another way of expressing that you love them. And if you're having a hard time bringing that forward, well, you can contact me too. I offer consulting sessions. You can send me a quick text. We can have a voice message, a voice conference, or, it's always great to meet online as well. Please subscribe, share this with a friend that you think would be helpful for. Check out in the comments the other ways that we can connect. I share other helpful information on social media as well, and love to hear from you. Please leave me your thoughts and comments below. And most of all, have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care.